What's going on, guys? I'm Tommy and I'm coming at you with an action figure review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Tamashii Nation's SHFiguarts Boba Fett classic version from the Book of Boba Fett. Say what you want about the series, I know it's not the most popular or the best, Disney Plus series that they've put out, but I really love this new design and new story arc for Boba Fett. I really loved when they reintroduced him in The Mandalorian Season 2. I was obsessed with that design, and this costume design for me is a close second. I picked this figure up from AmiAmi. That's the Japanese online retailer that I go to for most of my import figures, whether it be SHFiguarts, Mafex, you name it. They do a great job with their packaging, very speedy delivery, great customer service. I love using them for import figures. Boba Fett comes in the standard style of packaging for SHFiguarts as far as the Star Wars releases go. So on the front of the box, you'll see it's mostly a big plastic window, and then in the center of the window, you can see the logo for the series in a reflective chrome color, and you can see the figure and all of his accessories. Around the window, you've got a nice green chrome banner and the Bandai Namco logo up here. Down below that, you've got the name of the character and the show that he's from. You can see our Tamashii Nations and Bandai logos at the bottom right. And then on this side of the box, check this out, we have a nice glam shot of the figure from about the waist up, some of the different logos and legalese there. And then on the back of the box, I love what SHFiguarts does with the back of the boxes. You can see all different kinds of glam shots for the figure, a lot of the different accessories that are included being used, and they even use this to promote their Mandalorian figure, which is a great inclusion there. You can also see lots of our legalese at the bottom in a language that of course I cannot read, so we're not even going to bother trying. On this side of the box, you've got some horizontal packaging. Over here, you've got a little stamp of approval from Tamashii Nations, as well as the show logo and that same kind of banner art they have. On the bottom of the box, we have even more legalese, and on the top, we once again have our SHFiguarts logo and our Book of Boba Fett logos there too. So with that, we've got the packaging covered, so let's get this guy opened and we'll check him out. Alright guys, now here is Boba Fett out of the box. Now he comes with a ton of accessories, so I'm not going to bore you guys with going over all those options right at the beginning. We're going to jump right into the figure here. So my first thing I have to say here is that I love the weathering detail on this figure. Now one critique that I did have with the recent Black Series version of this figure was that they did not include a lot of the weathering detail as far as the exposed Beskar throughout Boba's armor. Most notably, in the Book of Boba Fett, there is this one very prominent scratch where you could see the Beskar exposed on the right side of his face, and I was really happy to see that SHFiguarts did include that detail. Of course, also we have the nice dent, which has been painted over in this look for Boba. You can see all the tick marks on the side of the helmet are done in this really nice, almost like scarlet color, and then you have a nice muted red for all of the details around the visor. You can see that runs all the way to the back of the helmet to the little details on the back of the center there. The rangefinder has some really nice black glossy paint at the top of it there, with some nice silver metallic detail on the actual stem of the rangefinder, and then you can see some very intricate detail, looks to be printed on in black and white at the base of the rangefinder there. And of course, this does articulate, so you can bring this about 90 degrees down to make it so that Boba is actually looking out of that rangefinder there. Aside from that though, you've also got some nice dark green to contrast that lighter, more olive green that he has for all of his armor, and I really have to say I like this darker green that they went with for these newer looks for Boba. Underneath this, you can see there is just a plain black sculpt for the neck, and then they do have the kind of turtleneck piece, I guess I'll call it, that does protrude up from the top of the carapace. That is its own separate loose piece, and I like this choice a lot because it's going to stop this figure from having limited articulation at the neck, because this piece can move freely with the neck. Looking at the carapace here, you can see they did include a lot of the iconic details for Boba, like this little symbol right here, and then you can also see they did even get the little bits of Huttese in that indicator there. That is extremely fine detail, and that is super cool that SHFiguarts was able to achieve that. You can see they did a little bit of silver here in the heart of the Mandalorian armor here on the chest, and you can see that its whole carrier is a separate sculpted piece from the rest of the torso. And then on the back here, we've got even more really nice detail. I love that they did silver paint for the pieces where the jetpack would connect. I'll be interested to see how the jetpack connects. I wonder if it's a magnet or if it's some sort of other connection. Either way, I think they did a great job of painting all the detail on the back of the carapace here. You can see some black exposed there as well. The base flight suit for Boba in this look is just a black, so they didn't really include any weathering or painted detail for it. It's just got some some pretty nice sculpted detail as far as the fabric look. He has these cool sleeves that kind of protrude out from underneath his outer carrier here. You can see they did separately sculpt his shoulder armor here. You can see on the left one here, we've got some really nice detail with, again, you can see some of that pure Beskar exposed underneath that paint job. And then we have that great mud horn emblem. That looks amazing. And then on the right here, we just have a much more plain, very bright, almost like construction yellow look for that right one there. That looks good too. You can see here he's got that classic flight suit look that we're very familiar with Mandalorians here. These are two separate pieces, so this will include a bicep swivel of sorts. You have your pretty typical SHFiguarts look for the elbow joint here, and then the gauntlets are where they also included a lot of great detail. So you'll see here on the left arm, you can see this dart piece up here has some really nice painted detail with some silver. You can see some, I guess I'll call that gold there, as well as some black. You can see some more silver up toward the front of the gauntlet where it meets up with the hand plate. You can see some extra detail here as well. I really like too how they included a lot of the detail all throughout the different bits of Beskar armor on the upper body for the exposed Beskar underneath. And I like how it's inconsistent all throughout. It feels a lot more realistic that way. As for the right gauntlet, you can see he's got these tubes which run from the back of the upper arm all the way down to the gauntlet. I'm a little worried about these because it doesn't look like they have much give. They don't feel very flexible, so I'll be interested to see how these work in the way of articulation. Hopefully they don't end up snapping on us. That'll be a huge bummer. But you can see at the ends here, the cables are done in silver, and you can also just see little bits of silver detail all throughout the gauntlet there. Some great paint apps on this figure. Speaking of great paint apps, the belt has some amazing sculpted and painted detail on this guy. You can see the belt buckle has some really nice gold painted there, and the belt is done in a very bright brown, and you can see all the ends of all the cartridges all throughout the belt are done in that gold, and you can see on the back of the belt too, it's got some awesome gold detail on there. Nicely done. You can see the two-tone layers of the belt as well, where you have that much thicker belt that's underneath his outer, I guess I'd call it a duty belt. It looks really good. And then what's interesting here is this is all one sculpted piece with the blaster pistol in the holster. So this is actually a swappable piece altogether. You can actually completely separate this from the figure and replace it with a version of an empty holster. We'll look at that a little bit more later, but you can see it's got a pretty secure connection to the figure. And then you can also see that the strap for the holster is its own separate piece, and that can actually peg into the holster itself. I think they did a good job getting the detail on the blaster as well. You can see they've got all the little rivets have their own painted detail. The grip has a different color than the blaster itself. You can even see some silver sticking out at the barrel of the blaster. That looks awesome. And as you can see too, the actual leg holster is its own separate piece, so this should be able to move out of the way nicely as we're articulating the figure. Boba Fett does feature a soft goods element, that being this frayed soft goods skirt piece. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of hoping this would be wired, but it doesn't look like it's wired, so that might affect, you know, how dynamic we can get these soft goods to look. However, you can kind of get these ends to fold over themselves nicely, and they did do a good job stitching the pleats in the back so that it holds a good shape and it doesn't look too big or ridiculous on the figure. I also think it was a good idea to go with this frayed look at the bottom of the skirt piece, as I feel like that's much more accurate to Boba's look in the show, because this is a callback to the Tusken Raiders. As for the legs, other than the holster being on the right leg here, you can see that he has a nice cargo pocket on his left thigh, some nice detail on the fronts of the legs as well. Again, they did a great job of sculpting in a lot of the wrinkles and folds of the fabric to give it a little bit of depth of texture, because other than that, there's no painted detail, so they do look quite plain. And then of course we have his knee armor here. You can see that on the outsides of both the knee armors here, you can see they did paint silver for the knee rockets. That's an awesome inclusion. And then we get down to the boots, which are a nice reddish brown. Again, they did a good job of painting in some extra detail on some of the wrinkles and folds. You can almost just see a little bit of airbrushing detail for a little bit of a darker brown in the valleys of where the folds are. I think they did a good job with that. And then of course, the toes of the boots going back to a dark gray. You can see they did also sculpt in all the tread for the boots, which is awesome detail as well. So overall, I think they did a great job on this figure. As far as the sculpting goes, I'm really impressed with the paint apps as well, especially on the top half of the figure. He's a little bit plain once you get to his bottom half, but I think overall they did a pretty fantastic job with him. Now let's cover articulation next for Boba. So Boba, being an SHFiguarts figure, you would expect that he is going to have some pretty stellar articulation. So at the top of the neck, we have a dumbbell joint. So there's going to be a ball joint that goes into the top of the neck and one that goes into the head, and then underneath here you can see maybe another dumbbell joint at the base of the neck as well. So that in compound is going to be a really nice range of motion for the figure. As you can can see we can get Boba to really look down, and we can also get him to look up a decent amount as well. Even with that turtleneck piece, you can get some really nice tilt back and forth, and some right and some left. As for the shoulders, it's almost like a drop down shoulder system, so you can see that the shoulder is going to kind of be able to pull itself away from the torso, and then on top of that too, we have a nice circular motion, like he's rolling his shoulders forward or back. It offers some really nice range of motion. There's obviously a basic hinge and swivel in there as well. The shoulder armor tucks itself nicely underneath the sculpt of the sleeves, so you can get about that 90-degree mark on the hinge, and then of course as well, you can get that full 360-degree swivel. We do have a cut for a bicep swivel about midway through the upper arm here. That's great added articulation, and then these joints here at the elbows are pinless double joints, is what we would call them in the action figure world. So those are going to get you a little bit past that 90-degree mark, and then I'm a little bit concerned again about this one over here. So usually what I do with like a Hasbro figure is the gauntlet will actually have a separate swivel at the base. This figure does not feature that, and looking in the box, it doesn't look like there's any additional accessories there, so we're just gonna kind of have to see how this works. I guess I would say just it feels like it stretches a lot, but it does move itself out of the way. I would say just be cautious. Make sure that these two cables in particular are on the outside of the elbow when you're bending that arm, because you can still get nice range out of it, but you could risk it ripping or pulling or stressing it too much when you're bending that elbow. If they get caught at the back of the elbow like this, it's probably going to snap. Then of course at the wrists here, we have a nice hinge and swivel peg system. So whatever way you turn the swivel of the hand, you're going to get some nice hinge in that direction. So it's nice because it's very omnidirectional, but it's also different from a basic ball joint here. You can see also, I didn't even notice this, they painted the fingers of the gloves in the accurate color. That's an awesome added detail there. We've got a ball joint at the waist here, and that's going to give us some decent range, all things considered. I was honestly expecting way less range considering we have the outer carrier and then also the belt, which are going to rub up against each other, so we can't really arch forward much. You can kind of tuck the armor underneath the belt sculpt there and get just a little bit of range for that ab crunch forward, and you can't really arch his back much at all, but you can get some decent side to side and of course some good circular motion. As for the hips, we seem to have some sort of ball joint system in here, so you can see you can get some decent range out of those. You can bring the legs forward a bunch, you can bring them back, and actually it looks like the pieces that connect to the hips are their own separate sculpt and actually move as their own independent joints. So you can actually really get some nice range out of Boba here. You can get him to almost get into the splits. The only thing that's stopping that on that left leg is that cargo pocket there. However, we also seem to have a cut for a thigh swivel built in, so you can get some limited in and out on that thigh swivel as well. And you can see they did try to match up the sculpt a little bit so that when it's looking straight ahead, it does look pretty flush. Then of course we have our pinless double jointed knees. Those are going to get us well past that 90-degree mark, which is great range of motion. And then down at the ankles, we have some sort of ball joint system, and actually you can see there's a little bit of paint rub on the bottom of the boot there. Whatever, that's just weathering to me. You can get a little bit of forward on that, you can get some back, and then of course we have toe hinges, so this is technically a Toba Fett as well, just like the Black Series one was, and you can get some good lateral motion in and out as well. So overall, for the design limitations of this figure, I think they did a pretty good job of meeting in the middle while marrying the articulation that SHFiguarts is known for, and also keeping the look of the figure pretty accurate to the source material. When it comes to Star Wars characters, you just kind of have to accept that some of them are just going to have limited articulation because of the way that the characters are designed. Now let's talk some accessories with Boba, and there are quite a few. So one of the first exciting things about this figure are that he has two swappable heads, and these do have a different neck piece entirely so that it's actually his skin tone instead of just that black color that I showed you earlier. Now the first one here is just going to be a very neutral looking face for Tamara Morrison, and I have to say I usually criticize the lack of accuracy to the likenesses for SHFiguarts when it comes to Star Wars, but I think they nailed this one. The paint apps on this look great. I think they did a good job painting on the scar on the front of his face. Not so much the scarring on the rest of his head, but they did a great job. He's got a very relaxed, kind of nonchalant look to him. I think they did a good job sculpting in the neck as well. These are pretty easy to swap out, so you just kind of pop the head off. As you can see, it's very easy to do. I think I'm going to leave the turtleneck piece on here. We'll just pop Boba's human head on, and you can see he looks pretty good with that on. It's very proportionate proportionate to the body, and it's got really good range to it as well. You can still get him to look down, you can still get him to look up, honestly even better than with the helmet on. Some good tilt side to side, and of course right and left. So it's a fully functioning articulated head and neck system. And then of course I do want to also show off, you can remove the neck from the helmet so that he can actually hold his helmet with him as a separate piece, which he does frequently in the Book of Boba Fett. Then of course we have another expression here, this one being a much angrier expression, the one that he uses when he's kind of using his gaffy stick. And I have to say, for an expressive face, usually these don't land in the 1/12 scale. This one is impressive. You can even see a little bit of his teeth sticking out, a much angrier expression. Side by side, these do look very different from one another as well. And so I would say where usually these 6-inch companies don't do a very good job giving you expressive faces and making them look accurate, I think they did a great job with this Tamara Morrison likeness. And of course, just to show how easy it is to swap the heads, the ball joints don't have much give to them at all, but man, that looks good too. Again, very proportionate to the body. I'm very, very happy with all the head options here. As is typical with SHFiguarts, you're also going to get a slew of swappable hands with this guy. So of course, out of the box, we do get some closed fist hands, which are great for just fighting or neutral stances, but we also get a bunch of other options. Our first two hands are going to be these open splayed hands here. These can be great for holding a two-handed blaster. You can see that on all the hands, you'll see that they did paint the fingers on the gloves, which is awesome. These can also be good for idle hands, just him holding a larger object or just him having his hands at his sides. Swapping his hands is pretty easy to do. You just pop the hands off and you do have these little ball joints here. Be careful with these. I've had these break on SHFiguarts figures before, and unfortunately they don't give you any replacement parts for them. But as you can see, you don't really have to use too much force to get them off and get the new ones on, so hopefully it shouldn't be too much of an issue for you. And here we've got Nu Metal album cover Boba here, ready for his Nu Metal album debut. But if you don't want Nu Metal Boba, you will also get these C-gripping hands. However, these are actually closed entirely. These are made specifically for holding his gaffy stick, which I'll show you in a little bit. In addition to those, Boba also gets some nose-picking hands or trigger finger hands or pointing hands. These are actually pretty multi-purpose. These are actually a great option for a figure release like this. And then for Boba's final set of hands here, we have just again some wider, I guess, C-gripping hands once again, except these ones are open as opposed to closed. And these are again very multi-purpose, good for holding a two-handed blaster, or maybe if you want a looser grip on the gaffy stick or something, these are a great option. Boba Fett also includes his jetpack here, and now that we're taking a look at the jetpack here, you can see that it has a peg system, so you must be able to remove all of these silver pieces here to get the jetpack on. The jetpack itself, though, has some amazing painted detail. Again, lots of the weathering showing the exposed metal and Beskar underneath, which is awesome. You can see some extra accents of the red, the blue, and even some yellow in there on that base. Very nice dark green color. I love it. And they even did some paint work on the inside of the jetpack too, which is always appreciated because that's a detail you're not even going to see when you have it on the figure. And then of course the thrusters do articulate on actually a ball joint. I thought it was just going to be a swivel, but it's actually even cooler that these are on a ball joint system. And then of course people always want to know, does the missile remove? Yes, the missile removes. You can even see they did some nice painted detail on the tip of the missile as well. This being Boba Fett, it looks like you can actually remove the entire back plate here, whereas I thought you would just remove all the metal bits. So I'm guessing maybe you just stick the entire jetpack on in its place. Okay, so I could be wrong. It looks like you do pop out the silver pieces here. Some of them are really jammed in there pretty nicely. Definitely keep an eye on these 3 silver pieces here. These I could see really getting eaten by the carpet monster. But with those aside, what we can do now is, as opposed to putting the jetpack just on his back, which I thought was a little weird, you can actually connect the jetpack into the holes onto the back plate and then connect both pieces onto the figure's back. So that's going to be how that connects, and it does pass the shake test. So as I mentioned earlier, Boba does come with a swap out holster as well. So you actually probably will just remove this entire piece from the side. Yeah, this just kind of pops up like a peg system. You can see there's one small circular peg at the base and then a larger peg at the middle. So kind of match that up again for a swap out version, which is just an empty holster. So there isn't actually a slot to put the blaster pistol into. This is just one solid sculpt here. That's if you want the blaster pistol in. in hand, that's a good option for you. Speaking of the blaster pistol, here it is, and you can see for the most part, it's got pretty identical paint apps here, especially on the grip of the blaster. So you can see they kept the detail very similar, and that's awesome to see, and you've got lots of color going on here. Very nice how much paint detail they put into such a simple blaster pistol design. I really like this blaster pistol for Boba, and I think it looks really, really nice. Another accessory they include here is, of course, Boba's EE3 blaster rifle, and this is the version that we see in The Mandalorian and in the Book of Boba Fett. I think they did a great job on the detail on this blaster as well. There's a little bit of a sparkle to the metallic parts of the blaster just in the sculpt, which gives it a nice shine to it, and then you've got a nice brown to the stock of the blaster as well. It's got some nice detail, and honestly, for as basic as it is, I really, really like this version of the EE3 for Boba. It might be my favorite of them all. And then finally here we have, honestly, this was one of the biggest draws for me for picking up this release. It is Boba's gaffy stick here. I love this accessory, and you can even see a little bit of subtle paint detail on this metal part here for the rust that is slowly developing on that gaffy stick. I love this end here as well. Lots of great sculpted detail on that, and some nice paint apps on the center of the gaffy stick as well. I was wondering, because the hands that are meant to hold this are completely closed, it must, you know, separate somewhere. You can see it does actually separate here so that you could actually feed the hands into either side of the gaffy stick. Watch out, it's very pointy on the end there, but you can see you can kind of feed the hands through on either side of the gaffy stick to get them to hold that. You can pop those hands right back off the accessory, put it together, and it's ready to go once again. My one thing I would have really loved would be if you could have attached the gaffy stick to the side of his jetpack like he does in the show, in the finale there. That would have been awesome to see. Maybe there might be a way through like friction, we can just kind of wedge that in there. But yeah, I think it's time we get this guy posed up now a few different ways, shall we? One thing, this is my general rule with any figure that has some sort of swappable hand feature, I always recommend that you put the accessory in the hand separate from the body first, and then attach both to the figure at the same time, just because, again, those wrist pegs can be really fragile and they can be very prone to breaking and snapping, and then you're stuck without a replacement for them. So getting the accessory in the hand and then just replacing the hand altogether, that's going to make for a much easier process for you. Here we've got Boba hawking them down here with that nice blaster pistol, and what's really nice is the way that they stitched the ends of this. You can really get it to fold nicely to get a more windswept look, and this pose here took me all of 2 seconds. SHFiguarts are so effortless to pose up. They've got a great center of gravity, and I already know I'm gonna have so much fun posing this figure around. Here's a really cool one-legged pose with Boba. He's got his gaffy stick reared back, ready to puncture a Pike soldier or a Nikto speed biker, whatever it is that's in his way. This figure, again, so fun to pose around, and you can just get such fun dynamic posing with SHFiguarts. The EE3 can be a little bit difficult and a little bit finicky to get into those hands, so what I always recommend is kind of wrapping the thumb around the grip of the blaster so that you can get that nice, very natural look there, and once it's like that, it looks good. And here's a more basic pose here that Boba frequently takes in the Book of Boba Fett here. I think it looks great. The blaster is a nice proportion to the rest of the body. You can see I also swapped back out the holster to show the blaster pistol in it. But with that, guys, that's gonna wrap it up for this review. I really feel like I could sit here and just pose this figure all day long and show you guys endless combinations of how to get him into different dynamic poses with the different accessories, but that's the enjoyment you're supposed to get out of SHFiguarts, so I would highly encourage you get this figure for yourself and try out all kinds of different posing. This is a figure I can already tell that's going to frequently make his way back to my desk while I'm editing my videos. But with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did and you're not yet subscribed, subscribe to Blitz Transmissions. I've got awesome Star Wars content coming out all the time. If you're an ARC Trooper in my Patreon, you would have seen this review early. If you'd like access to early content, monthly giveaways, and other awesome benefits, the link to my Patreon is in the description below. Become an ARC Trooper for just $4.99 a month. If you're a fan of the reviews I do here on YouTube, or you just want to support the YouTube channel more directly, you could also check out my YouTube channel membership, Rancor Battalion. For just 99 cents a month, it gives you access to exclusive badges, priority replies in my comments section, you get access to exclusive emojis. If you'd like some Blitz Transmissions swag, you could always check out the Blitz Transmissions Armory over on Printify. Link to that is in the description below, as well as links to my Discord and all my social media. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. I'll catch you for the next one, and may the Force be with you.
Breaking off all units, fire at will. 1-2, pick a target. Too many, Captain. Watch your stabilizer, Gold 6. Anybody cover me. I got 2 vultures on my tail. You've got to hold them here. Watch your left. I can't shake them. I'm hit. I'm hit. Where's our reinforcements?